Back in March, we played Gallagher's Canyon during its opening week of the season. They were eager to have me back now that season is in full swing in Kelowna. And we're not going to play the Gold Tees today, where they play some Mackenzie Tour events. The Black Tees are plenty hard enough for a player of my caliber. And on the first hole, we smooth one into the middle of the fairway. But it's quick to see why this is stroke hole 1. This is a tough approach shot, and mine clips the trees and ends up about 30 yards short. And then I bladed a wedge all the way to the back of the green. And with this 60-footer, obviously 2-putt would be a great outcome. And we do exactly that to start the day with a bogey. On the second hole, we opt to hit the smart shot with a hybrid to leave just a short number in. And this shot's playing uphill, and last time on the channel I dumped this one in the bunker, so I grab extra club to make sure we're on and putting for birdie.
Thanks.
We accomplish that feat, and roll a decent putt here, and we're just fine tapping in for par on 2. On 3, I also grab an extra club, and it's a bit of a push that winds up pin high on the right. And this chip is a pretty good effort, and that's our first up and down of the day. The fourth hole favors a fade off the tee, and we hit a pretty good one here, although the approach shot is blind and uphill. And this was good contact, but it's pushed a bit right of the green. This is a good omen for the rest of the round. The chip here doesn't release the way I thought it might, and with about 15 feet for par, we jar it. On the fifth hole, we smooth one into the middle of the fairway, and this pin is tucked right, and I want no part of going after it. And we hit a 6-iron that ends up just at the front of the green. This is a really difficult putt that needs to go through the fringe, and the fringe killed it a bit more than I thought it might. And for the second consecutive hole, we have about 15 feet for par, and we jar this one too. This is another good drive on the par 5, and it will leave me with a decision on the second shot. We have about 250 in. I opt not to lay up to a particular number this time, thinking that I should get inside 50 yards. I have about that number bang on, and I hit a great pitch here. I watch my dad and another playing partner leave theirs a bit low, so I play more break. A bit too much though, and we'll take another par. The course knowledge gain from last time I played here was hit less than 4 wood off the tee, so I hit hybrid today. And you'll see that once again I'm a bit boxed out, so next time I might hit 5-iron. I'm trying to carve this 7-iron around the tree, and it ends up not carving a ton and left a bit short. But I hit a good chip here, and that's another scrambly par. This was really good contact on the 8th hole, and this one ends up flirting with the hole. It ends up releasing through the back of the green, and this putt through the fringe is pretty solid, and that's technically another 1-putt par. Last time we played 9, we hit a push fade into the trees, and this time we hit a push fade into the trees. I'm lucky to find this one, and lucky to punch it out successfully with the 5-iron. With about 200 in, I'm on line here, but the ball dives and gets left in a pretty awkward spot. With this pitch, we're just trying to get it on the green. It rolls a bit over, but we hit a good lag putt through the fringe, and we bookend the 9 with another bogey. So we'll recap this 9 by noting that we hit the ball great off the tee, and while we didn't hit a ton of greens, we were often pin high, and good chipping and putting allowed us to salvage a pretty good score. We start the back 9 with another solid drive off the tee, which means that we'll go for this par 5 and 2. This was solid, but a bit of a push, and it ends up in a really awkward spot. I'm not even sure if I can get this out, and I end up hacking it into the greenside rough. This chip rolls a bit past the pin, so I'll have about 12 feet for par, and I'm forced to settle for bogey. This is my worst drive of the day.
It'll run.
Oh, it'll run.
But it does end up in the middle of the fairway. Another 5 hybrid with solid contact that's also pushed right of the green. This one's pretty straightforward, and it's funny that when you eye a chip going in the hole, you stand a better chance of doing it. So we'll take par here. I probably couldn't hit a drive straighter than this if I tried, and unfortunately on this hole you really need to hit a draw. So for the second shot I'm basically punching out with my hybrid. But I do put it in a good spot and wind up with a short iron in. And while this one doesn't hit the green, it's in a good spot. And at this point I'm going to talk about putting. It's important to evaluate when you hit a bad putt why that happened. And here I certainly can't blame the fact that I didn't go through my routine. I looked at the shot from all sides and hit a putt, but it was just a crappy one. Then I definitely watched closely as my dad hits a couple of putts at this pin. And I'm fully committed here to hitting this firm and at the pin. But unfortunately I end up pulling it just a hair. So again, it's important to evaluate why we hit bad putts when we hit them. And in this case, it wasn't the planning stage that failed, it was just the execution. On the uphill par 3, I hit a 5 hybrid into a pretty good spot. And unfortunately, all of the good work we did putting on the front 9 starts to unravel here. It's a bad first putt and a really bad second putt that I just didn't commit to hitting firm enough. And that's our first 3 putt of the day. 14 is a really tough hole that demands a good drive and an even better approach. And here I decide that playing a bit left of the pin should allow the ball to trickle in. But that was actually a bad plan because I end up in a spot that's really tough to get up and down from. The first chip doesn't get there, but the putt's decent enough, and my dad blocks our view of the bogey putt. Last time we hit driver on this hole and it led to a disastrous double bogey. So here we decide we're just going to smooth a hybrid into the middle of the fairway and try to hit the green from the uphill blind lie. We definitely grabbed extra club and did that. And we can't find the birdie putt, unfortunately. But par is just fine. On the par 3 here, it's really tough to pick the right club. And I decide to let up on a 5 iron because this is playing about 20 yards downhill. I end up with about 30 feet here. And again, we definitely cashed in all of our good putting karma on the front 9. And that's another 3 putt. This drive was pushed a bit up the right and actually wound up in a gopher hole until we pulled it out and put it in a decent spot in the rough. We're happy to be on the green here, but that's another weak first putt. And oh my goodness, that's our third 3 putt on the back 9. 18 isn't too tough a hole if you put one in the fairway, and I managed to do that here and have just a wedge in. And I know a lot of people say to not think about your score, but I find it motivating while playing, and I know that this birdie putt, if it drops, will let me break 80.
Leave it recording.
But we're not going to complain with the par. So an 80 equates to a 7.5 differential, which is a great comeback after our 91 the other day. And look at this. We only hit 2 greens on the front but shot 2 over, whereas we were 6 over on the back with 5 greens in regulation. The answer is that we hit 12 putts on the front and 19 on the back, reinforcing the notion that the flat stick is the most important club in the bag.